Wai Wai Monsterland is a game whose title is spelled two different ways. The box spells out Wai Wai, while the cartridge and title screen use the letter Y and the number 2. Since Y2 Monsterland is a little bit confusing, I went with the spelled out version. The Wai Wai in the title is the Japanese onomatopoeia for a bolsterous crowd. Wai Wai Monsterland was Epoch's Super Cassette Vision release for summer of 1986. Yes, release singular. The system is really on its last legs. The game is intended to be Epoch's answer to Super Mario Bros. Plus, of course, all of the various Super Mario Bros. Copycats that were flying off the shelf over on the Famicom. It's also among the rarest Super Cassette Vision games, as you'd expect from a 1986 release for a dead system, and cartridge-only copies go for well over 10,000 yen. The plot of the game is that Toru's girlfriend Naoko has been abducted by monsters. So now he has to go to all of their houses and beat them up. When you start the game, you have a map of the world very similar to Namco's Dragon Buster. You can pick your way to any connected region and pick a path for how you want to take on the monsters. The monsters you'll be facing are Frankenstein, a mummy, the creature from the Black Lagoon, Dracula, a werewolf, and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. I am not even joking about that last one. Each monster has its own stage, so there's only 6 stages in all, but the stages are fairly long. Vast sets of connected paths, plus if you're going to the bonus areas to collect power-ups, they become even longer. As you're playing, the right button jumps and the left button throws your cross. The cross is the weapon that you use to take out monsters you encounter. Jumping in Wai Wai Monster World is bad. Very, very bad. Some of the worst jumping I've ever encountered in a platformer. The height of your jump doesn't vary with how long you hold down the button, but there are different jump heights. If you walk about the length of a quarter of a screen, suddenly Toru will break into a run, and that allows him to jump much higher. The other way to get more height in a jump is if you're standing still and jump, and then hit the jump button again the moment you hit the ground. Your next jump will be higher, and then if you do it again, you'll jump even higher. The timing on this bouncing is really tight. However, you are going to have to rely on it to reach most high places. For the cross, when you start out you can only fire one at a time. They're slow and pokey, and you'll just have to wait until they hit something. If you run into an enemy, then you lose your cross, and then another hit after that will kill you. You won't be able to attack again until you find a new cross. However, the guidance arrow above your head that normally points in the direction you have to go to finish the stage will change so that it will lead you to the nearest cross. Scattered throughout the stage are invisible windows that you'll have to shoot open. Even when they're invisible, these are solid objects that you're able to stand on. Once the window is open, you can jump in and it'll take you to some kind of bonus area. There are 2 of these to be aware of. First is the warp zone, which flashes the screen heavily, so I'm not showing it. It will skip you a short distance ahead in the stage. The more important areas are the treasure rooms, and here you can collect gems. The number at the center top of the screen shows you how many gems you need to collect to level up the cross, and then how many gems you currently have. Leveling up the cross will turn it into the gold cross, which will fire automatically. You can also start to fire multiple copies of it. An advantage of the gold cross is that when you run into an enemy, you'll lose 1 tick of the gold cross strength instead of losing the cross altogether. Although you'll still die with a second hit or running into a big monster. Inside the treasure room, you have a pretty tight time limit, and you have to find an exit door before that runs out. If the path connecting the rooms is through the floor or the ceiling, it's always open and visible to you, but paths to the sides are closed off, and you'll have to bump into the wall to find them. There's a very limited number of layouts for these treasure rooms, and so you're going to see the exact same ones over and over and over again. I encountered this area's layout 4 times in Frankenstein's stage. You'll encounter the boss monster throughout the level, but it's always a clone of the original. The true version of the boss is at the very end of the stage, and there's a time limit when you face them down. There's no real trick to them other than try to dodge their shot and hit them in the head. Very rarely, you'll find bricks that you can shoot with the cross that will get you something extra. Most of the time, you'll encounter these in treasure rooms. And here you can find items that will grant you an extra life if you collect enough of them. You can also find an alarm clock that will freeze time and make you invincible, but it has an even more extreme strobe effect, and so I'm not showing it. There are special features to several stages. Like on the stage for the creature from the Black Lagoon, you'll be underwater and can swim freely by pressing up and down on the controller. You'll eventually run out of breath, turning red right before you run out, and you'll have to find pockets of air as you go. On the Mummy's stage, the mummy will sometimes disguise himself as friendly characters, and if you run up to them, he changes back and kills you. I haven't been able to clear a single stage as I play Wai Wai Monsterland, and all of that comes down to the controls being terrible, both in terms of the software controls and the actual controller for the Super Cassette Vision. The Super Cassette Vision controller is extremely mushy and unresponsive, which just makes it a nightmare to use in this game. Not that I think that Wai Wai Monsterland would improve a whole lot if I could control it better. The stage designs are boring. Having to do the same bonus stages over and over again in order to power up is just annoying. And the game is often outright unfair, sometimes dropping you in right on top of a monster. This is all of the cliches of the bad platformers that followed Super Mario Bros. The only thing that makes this even mildly acceptable is it's the only game of its kind on the Super Cassette Vision. Wai Wai Monsterland was Epoch's attempt to challenge Nintendo on their own turf, and it's a miserable failure.